Good guys, we're back with another video, and this one's quite special because this is based on conversations that I have on a daily basis, and this is usually something that I reserve for my clients exclusively, but I think it's important to discuss some of the challenges that traditional companies face. I speak to a lot of business owners that have traditional businesses, and they're often looking to figure out how they can traverse and work their way around the new digital landscape. So we're going to dive right into it. If you don't know who I am already, I'm Keenan, a digital growth consultant. I have an agency and we scale e-commerce businesses and established e-commerce businesses in particular. So let's have a look at what we're going to discuss today. So we're going to look at some of the challenges that traditional companies face online and how to overcome them, but we're going to look at how traditional businesses can evolve from classical marketing techniques and excel in the digital advertising landscape. So we're going to look at some of the challenges that traditional marketing has. We're going to dive into some of the numbers and show how and why companies must evolve in order to stay competitive. We're also going to look at some of the pros. I definitely want to look at the pros because this is what a lot of people come to me with, hey, this is working like this is working like this. So we're going to unpack it. I like to keep it objective. So we're going to look at real life case studies. We're also going to look at some, anecdotal things. I'll share my opinion where I can, but I'm going to include reports, stats, and I'm also going to look at some of the biggest companies and what they're doing. So you're going to want to stick around if you want to see what some of the biggest companies are doing, because I believe success leaves clues, and this could be extremely valuable if you are a digital company that's looking to make the pivot. So let's get right into it. Firstly, the evolution from traditional to digital. What are they? We need to establish what they are first. So traditional marketing, you've got your marketing in terms of billboards, TV commercials, and trade shows. Something that's served businesses extremely well. Then on the digital side of things, you've got PPC, SEO, email marketing, and especially right now, something you'd be familiar with is the social media marketing. Now, we're going to look at some of the proponents and the offerings that the traditional side of things offer. We're going to look at digital and why it's, potentially more data-driven and precise. And as commerce increasingly shifts online, some of the traditional methods, in my opinion, lack targeting, customization, and comprehensive analytics. But besides from my opinion, we're going to look at the reports and we're going to look at the real life data that suggests, what's actually happening and how it's pivoting in real time. So the benefits of traditional marketing. This is something I'm extremely familiar with because a lot of people come to me talking about the benefits. They say, we've got the reach, it's tangible, we've got the simplicity, trust, local impact, all of these things. I kind of see them as golden handcuffs because, they work to the extent where it's enough. I'm not here to say they're going to go out of business tomorrow by not implementing certain digital strategies. However, how competitive can you be? Are you going to be an industry leader? And these are what we're going to look at. So let's look at some of the benefits. You've got reach, you can cover a large audience, reach a large demographic with limited internet access. Tangible, physical materials, like brochures, flyers, billboards. These can often leave a long-lasting impression, and it's more of a tactile experience because people feel it. People like to feel things, and people and consumers that I agree with are often led by emotion. So these can be important. The simplicity of it, they say, Keenan, it's simple, it works. These methods are simple, straightforward, and there's no learning curve. There's no learning curve like digital, trying to figure out SEO and the complexity of online ads. We're not familiar with it. Trust. They believe that it holds more credibility, and there's certain audiences, long established newspapers, TV, radio. These can instill huge amounts of trust. Local impact, local radio, newspapers. You can effectively enhance a business's presence within a locality. Again, this is another plus they come with. Unplanned exposure. People can stumble across traditional marketing. You've got billboard, radio ads without actively seeking it. It can sort of provide a serendipitous approach. You stumble across something, it's like, oh, it doesn't feel like it's being forced on you. And that ties into the next point of people often believing that the traditional means are less intrusive. So these are some of the pros. These are some of the pros. I'm not just going to, bash the negative things because these are things that I actually encourage my clients to include. Now, what can we measure? A lot of them come to me and they're talking about the daily effective circulations of their magazine. They've just spent 6 figures on this radio placement. We've got targeted rating points, etc. So GRPs, we can measure the reach and frequency of an ad. TRPs, similar to above, but it's tied to the target demographic in particular. Daily effective circulations. This is a huge one. People love this one. Tracking passes of a billboard, okay? Viewership ratings, then we've got circulation. This is usually with print and magazine formats. measure the number of distributed copies in print media, ad recall, assess audiences' memory of those ads through surveys, cost to reach, etc. Now, what I see with these, I believe they're predominantly awareness-based, then the rest is out of your hands. So, for example, DC, tracking someone that has passed the billboard. What about the conversion, A lot of these are awareness-based, and it's hard to know how relevant many of them are. For example, even sales lift, where you measure the increase in sales during a particular season. How do you know what to attribute towards the sales lift? Was it a particular billboard campaign? Was it the radio campaign? How are you going to be able to actually understand what the sales lift was unless you do them staggered and you do one at a time? Because if you're running all of them together coherently, how do you know which one has the sales lift? And this is where I see a little bit of an issue in terms of the precision and the tracking, because as stewards, wise stewards of capital in business, a lot of you may be CEOs watching, or you may be CMOs watching. How can you track these things? Essentially, it's kind of like throwing pasta at the wall and seeing what sticks, except this is very expensive pasta. If we're talking about billboards, TV, radio commercials, this can be, significantly expensive. So, what are some of the limitations? We've discussed a few already, but traditional methods often cast a wide net. Like I said, we're often looking at reach, potential customers, but it's often hard to measure the real impact and what you often want to measure, which is, a conversion or how much it costs to acquire a particular person. The thing is, many of the modern methods can do what the traditional methods can do, plus more. So for example, you've got the daily effective circulations. It gives you a rough estimate of billboard viewers, but you can't guarantee that those viewers are necessarily your target audience, nor can you track conversions. All you get is someone seeing it. Okay, someone sees a billboard of a Gillette razor blade, or they see Evian water. How can you track if that person's going to make a purchase? Your goal is simply awareness at that point, which can be, extremely capital intensive upfront. However, if that's what you want to do, you can continue to spend your money there. Trade shows are another thing. They've been cornerstones for B2B marketing, but their reach is inherently local and their impact's hard to quantify. So what I mean by this is, there might be trade shows in Dubai, or you might have an expo in Atlanta. If you don't have a sales rep to go there and you can't afford to send them there, how are they going to get there? Is limited in terms of the locality of a particular area and you having the resources to be able to get there. And again, a lot of our clients in the particular niches that we operate in, those expenses for these trade shows, they are not cheap. And if you do want to go there and you want to get a little stand in the corner where no one goes past and there's no traffic and footfall, it's still going to run you a decent amount of money, but what's your return on it? You might get a couple of business cards, people handing them to you saying they're going to call you on Monday. Do those calls come through? So this is what I like to look at because it's what I specialize in particular. And a lot of my time is spent just giving people the understanding of the contrast between the two. I like to see digital as precise. I'm data driven, I'm accurate, I like attention to detail, I like things to be done meticulously. And I feel like digital offers that precision, almost laser-like focus. So you've got things such as, click-through rate, conversion, bounce rate, customer acquisition costs. I'm going to open these up and go through them because we went through some of the pros of the traditional. We're going to go through some of the pros that I see in digital. So click-through rate, you can measure the percentage of people who click your content, showing its engagement value. You can track the ratio of visitors who complete the desired action. Now, the reason I like this conversion rate one is because I like to engineer the experience for the customer. So what is the desired outcome? If the desired outcome is a conversion, which is literally for someone to make a purchase, then I can track the desired outcome, which is the conversion rate. So it allows us to assess how effective this campaign is on a website. So it's not just, awareness. We can actually affect and assess and analyze the desired outcome and action. I really like the conversion rate. Bounce rate indicates the percentage of visitors that view the page, hinting possible issues. So we can see someone who's seen it, we can have a heat map on the website, and then we can iterate and improve. With the billboard, someone can see it. We don't know how long they looked at it for. We don't know where they looked on the billboard. So it's difficult for us to adapt. Again, there's a lot of shooting in the dark and guessing, throwing pasta at the wall and seeing what sticks. With this, things like bounce rate, you can effectively know where someone's hovering over. This mouse right here, I can have a tool like Hotjar If you're not familiar with it, I might leave a link down below, but you can put a heat map on your website and see where people are clicking. And then a lot of the time it's just about being customer focused and customer centric, because if 90% of people are clicking one particular place, maybe you can make that information more prevalent and more accessible for them. Customer acquisition cost enables you to calculate the cost of acquiring a customer. Now this is really important, because if you know how much it is to acquire a customer, you can then potentially start printing money, and it can get exciting. Now, I say printing and it's a bit of an exaggeration, but what I mean by that is you can actually calculate the cost for a customer. Why is this important? Because you know how much you can allocate up front. This ties into the next one down below, which is the lifetime value of a customer. Because if you know the lifetime value of a customer, you can be a bit more strategic about how you acquire a customer. Because if you know that the lifetime value of the customer is X amount, you can afford to spend maybe a little bit more on the front end, because you know the back end is going to pay for it. Now this is what I mean about data, precision, and it actually allows you to make more informed decisions. You can have more effective planning, and you can have efficiency in your analysis, which I like. So you can track the customer's journey and estimate the total revenue that they'll generate over their lifespan, essentially allowing you to forecast and see in the future. So not only do you have laser precision, but you actually have a bit more depth in terms of, okay, we can spend this much to acquire a customer because we can measure how much this costs, and we can actually look at the lifetime value of this particular customer based on previous data and match it up. Then you've got things like social media engagement, email, open rate, clicks, etc. So traditional marketing like billboard, a lot of the time it's estimating reach and impressions, and you cannot necessarily track direct responses, calculate the ROIs, and it's hard to then optimize the marketing. How do you change something when you don't know what the particular outcome is? How do you change something when you can't measure it? Okay, so measuring is important. Precise audience targeting, customization increases the relevancy and results. The word I simply like to use is dynamic. It allows you to be more fluid. When we look at nature, when we look at competition, in essence, it's usually those that are able to adapt that have the competitive advantage. Not necessarily the strongest, not necessarily those that are always everywhere, but if we're talking about longevity and being in this game for a long time, perhaps you are a heritage brand, perhaps you are established with your traditional means, but why not include a little bit more? Why not have more accuracy over what you can actually measure when we're talking about reaching your customer? Because essentially that's what's important. If we're talking about profitability and bottom line, and this is what we like to talk to with established companies, is profitability, bottom line, but essentially putting your customer first. If you put the customer first, it's very hard for your competitors to beat you. So reports, I'm sharing my opinions, I'm sharing some of my perspectives, but the reports, here's the kicker. E-market reports that digital ad spend surpassed traditional in 2019. And this is a trend that we only see accelerating and ascending. This is something that I can see from firsthand, and this is something that the report shows. So, since 2019, have you taken action? Potentially not. If you have, are you continuing to take action? And if you're not, just understand someone else is. So I'm not saying that you're going to go out of business tomorrow by not implementing these right now. That's not the case. Again, when I say I work with established companies, a lot of them are they're going to be pretty solid regardless. But it depends on whether you just want to be competitive or whether you want to become an industry and market leader. Now these are the differences that long-lasting longevity provides, and is where you can start to see a decline by some not changing. So also a study here, Ipsos 2021, half of all global ad spending will be online. So 50%, if we're talking about being customer centric and meeting people where they reside, if they're online, it makes sense for even this is something that's interesting. A lot of people, their marketing budget, traditional companies could be, 95% billboards, TV and radio, when 50% of their audience are online. You're allocating 5% to 50% of your total market share. It becomes an equation similar to how you can work out the lifetime value and the customer acquisition cost. It becomes an equation of, okay, your competitors are spending 70% of their marketing budget on online and maybe 30% on traditional means. You're spending 5%. Is a weighing scale, okay? So again, I wanted to include some actionable steps. I'm going to have more resources, and I have some resources already available online with the more technical, in-depth strategies, but I'm just going to keep it surface level, potentially not implement anything. So how can you transition from traditional to digital? Now, many traditional businesses, in my opinion, actually apply online. And if you can at least duplicate and get some of the traditional things you're doing, perhaps your newspapers, magazines, if you can just get that online and try and understand in context what these platforms like, that's a good start, you know. Before you have to completely adapt and understand the complete learning curve, just duplicate what you're doing already online, okay? So some actionable steps. Start by determining which social media platforms your customer use and establish a consistent presence there. Engage with your audience. As you can see, a lot of these things, a lot of the tips that I usually say are, or tips that I recommend, but tips that are, you know, general best practices online, are based around the customer, the audience, you know. Establish a consistent presence. Just show up, be there. Engage with your audience. It's focused on them. Optimize your website for search engines and consider starting a blog to share useful content that boosts your SEO. Now, blog sharing, it's changed from traditional SEO rich written blogs. Now it can be a short 15-second video explaining your product or service. If you're already doing that, the step ahead, start optimizing your social media posts with alt tags and intentional titles. Now, this is something that we're pushing at the moment, which not a lot of people know about, but Facebook Reels. You're thinking, Facebook? Isn't Facebook on the decline? Isn't everyone using TikTok? Facebook Reels, the reason why, okay, it's very smart. The user base is huge, it's massive. Facebook Reels, wanting to compete with TikTok and Instagram, they're pushing an algorithm. However, the demand for content based on the amount of people on the platform is not at the same level of people producing content. So the demand for the videos and the want for the social media platform for you to produce it is up here. The amount of people that are actually doing it is down here. So if you can get in, you've got a good chance of getting some extremely underpriced attention. Another thing, again, this is something for maybe people that are already implementing it, and we're not talking about just starting their social media presence. You've got things like YouTube. YouTube, owned by Google. You can get really creative with SEO-rich titles in order to boost your searchability. So if someone types in, you know, lawnmowers in a particular city, if you can be a bit more intentional with the titles, and that's what I mean here by having alt tags and titling things properly and really just trying to understand certain platforms. Again, I'll go into this in more detail, but I just wanted to throw that in there just so you understand what we're sort of working with. Set up Google Ads, Facebook ad accounts, start small, test different approaches, find what works. It sounds very simple, but the bare minimum you want to do is have your pixels set up and your targeting set up. Just bare minimum if you want to at least retarget the high intent people. So people that are already showing interest, maybe they visited your website, they found it organically. Again, we'll talk about how we want to boost the SEO so you can actually be found. Now, if someone finds you, bare minimum, we want to be able to at least hold on to someone that's shown significant intent, and maybe we can perhaps retarget and remarket to them. So get your ad account set up, test small, you know, and just start to see what works and start to understand the landscape. Because in my opinion, the transitioning is not all about shifting resources, but it's about adopting a new mindset. So that new mindset pertains to being open and willing to learn. The only way you're going to be open and willing to learn is getting familiar, getting stuck in, understanding how it feels. Now, you might have a big marketing team, you might have a marketing CMO or manager. Show them this as a resource. If you are the CEO, perhaps you need to collaborate with someone that understands it a little bit better than yourself. But nonetheless, you want to get a feel for it, because whether we like it or not, this is the direction it's going in. So case studies. Again, I want us to be objective. I don't just want to be, you know, talking about anecdotal things and things I'm doing. I think it helps. I think some of you may find it interesting. For example, you know, the Facebook Reels example, etc. But I like case studies. I want to look at real world examples and how the awareness and application of this framework and thinking that we've covered can actually have a direct impact on what you guys care about most, which is money. You know, money in the bank. That's essentially what it comes down to. Money in the bank, being customer centric, you're going to win. It's a win-win. Your customers are happy, they're getting good product if you genuinely believe you have a good product or service, and you're happy. More money, more exposure, more reach, and you have more accuracy of this. So let's look at a big player. Let's look at Nike. You know, once a traditionally marketed brand, they've seen incredible success online with their moves to digital. They leverage social media platforms, personalized email marketing, and also their app to engage and connect with their audience. So Nike's React campaign perfectly exemplifies is digital success. They use Facebook Instant Experience, dynamic ads. This digital strategy led to a 36% increase in online sales in 2020. If we look at another player, IKEA, huge in-store experience, they leverage digital platforms to enhance their online presence. Now, they developed AR. I'm not saying that you have to go and have an augmented reality strategy, but it allows customers to visualize how the furniture will look in their homes. This transition led to a 45% increase in online sales in 2020. Zara, another huge retailer I'm sure you're familiar with, strategic store locations. They usually ran print minimalistic ads, and they pivoted towards social. They had a self-checkout system in their stores, blending their physical experience with their digital. So you can see how it's not just traditional's bad, digital's good. It's more of a blend of both, and just understanding that if you are a traditional company, or perhaps you're skirting the edge of digital, or you're not applying certain methodologies properly, is a case where implementing both is where it becomes powerful. So this approach seen their e-commerce sales grow by 50%. 50% in the first quarter of 2021 alone. Walmart, renowned retail giant, I'm sure you've heard of them, consistently adapted their digital presence to compete with e-commerce giants. Now, they recognized that they needed to engage with online shoppers, so they revamped their website with a more personalized, user-friendly shopping experience. They use predictive analysis to provide product recommendations. Now, the reason this is crazy, and the reason I like this one in particular, is because the predictive analysis is along the ethos of being consumer-centric. Predictive analysis is, you have purchased with us before, we're going to recommend you products based on your purchases. We're going to recommend you products based on what we believe you, or what we understand you to like, based on data and information. So some people may find it intrusive. I find this very interesting. It's fascinating. Imagine you've gone and you bought some toilet paper online, toilet roll, okay? Now, in 3 weeks' time, you get an email saying, here's the toilet roll. You get ads served, here's the toilet roll. We know that you bought this. Three weeks has elapsed. We'll recommend you this product. This is the power of predictive analysis, and this is the direction it's going. With AI, honestly, you don't want your competitor get to the point where the gap is unclosable, because once the gap's unclosable, it's going to be very hard to catch up. When people are using predictive analysis for recommendations on products, and you're still handing out flyers, is a gap. So in 2019, their e-commerce sales grew by 37%, successfully transitioning from traditional brick and mortar to being a significant online player. So Burberry, the British fashion luxury retailer, they've always adopted new marketing channels innovatively. Despite its roots in the 19th century, Burberry, one of the first brands to embrace e-commerce and social media. So they'll do live streams for their fashion shows, they're posting, they're using hashtags, everything. And this is a traditional heritage British brand, and as a result, they've seen significant growth. And I want to include some numbers in this one. So from approximately 150 million in annual revenue in 2011 to nearly 675 million in 2020, according to Statista. And I know this year that is significantly larger. So again, according to Brandwatch, not just myself, Burberry has one of the highest social media rates among luxury brands, demonstrating the company's successful use of social platforms. Remember, each of these companies, they were a traditional company that saw the need for digital and made a successful transition. I do believe C19 may have sped up that process, but I personally think it was just encouraging the inevitable. So nonetheless, all of them required clear understanding of their customers, well-planned strategy, and an ongoing commitment to their online audience. So there's an understanding of their customers, strategy, and commitment. Customer, strategy, commitment. You can boil it down to these 3 things. If you understand your customer, you meet them where they naturally reside, you have a well-planned strategy, and you're committed to actually supporting them, you're going to be successful. So I wanted to add a little caveat. These are not small percentages. When we're talking about multi-billion-dollar corporations, they're not small percentages. If you don't have a business at all, this is laying the framework. Now, established brands that we do work with, we're still talking multi-7, 8 figures, if you start implementing some of these changes. And hopefully, one day it can be billions, because we're long-term growth partners. So let's look at the cost comparisons between traditional means and online means. Let's keep it fair. We're going to look at the most popular ones, such as TV advertising. A lot of our clients will come to us, not necessarily TV, but some of the ones below: radio, print. So TV advertising costs, can greatly vary, but we're looking at, for a 30-second slot on a TV advert, we're looking at anywhere from $200,000 up to $2 million nationally in the US. Let's compare this to something like YouTube, something that we're familiar with, something that you're probably familiar with. You can run YouTube ads for a few cents per view, specifically to your target audience. So you can hone in on your target demographic, and we're talking about a few cents per view compared to, upwards of 6 to 7 figures, significant figures for a TV advertisement placement nationally. Ironic, I wanted to use this example here, where you've actually got Google advertising something on YouTube. Google owns YouTube. It's ironic. They use their own platform crazy for free, I'm assuming. Radio advertising. This is one that people come to us with. We're on radio. Now, again, depending on the slot and the popularity, 30-second radio, mid-sized market, you're talking 1,000 to 2,000. I've seen upwards of 7,000 and definitely more if it's national, but these are just some numbers to give you perspective. Conversely, digital audio platforms, Spotify, allows you to run with a minimum budget of $250. So we're talking literally 10 times less. And we've got smart water here, advertising. And I would say, arguably, YouTube is in excess of billions of people. TV, billions, hundreds of millions. We're not, comparing two things where it's like, okay, you need to use the laser precision modern digital marketing and there's only a few thousand people. We're talking about, hundreds of billions and billions of people that you can still access, but you just have more control over the data and you can be more precise. Now, billboard advertising. Billboard advertising, again, can depend on location, size, is it a major city? But standard billboard in a major city, we're talking $1,500 to $30,000 a month. We're talking up to $1,000 per day budget. In contrast, something we're familiar with here, advertising platforms such as Google Ads, you can display your ad on numerous websites with a much smaller budget. And interestingly, I was going to mention this with the YouTube, but you only pay when someone clicks. So you're not only getting more precision, potentially greater reach, you're literally paying when someone clicks. So just got an example of the Google Ads up here. And we've got print advertising, another one that's big. Full page ad on a national newspaper, we're talking upwards of $100,000. While magazines can range from $500 all the way up to 500,000. A lot of the time we're seeing stuff within the 20K range, 50K range, 75Ks. We're talking bigger publications at that point. Meanwhile, email marketing, campaign that you can reach an equally large audience for a fraction of the cost, and you can track your return on investment. The thing with email that I honestly love about, and you own it, you really control this, and you're reaching your most high intent customers or potential customers. So the likelihood of them resonating with your message is, if they've opted in, is significantly high compared to, a daily effective circulation count on a magazine, or a trade show flyer or a leaflet. We're talking about something that you actually own, and you can hone in and craft the message and reach them at specific times, and you can measure the open rates, and you can measure the click-through rates on particular links, and you can have special discounts where you can use a discount code and track it back to a particular email campaign, and it costs significantly less. It's just, there's loads going on here, and this is why I wanted to actually use direct examples, because not only are we looking at established brands that are implementing this process, we're actually looking at now a tangible difference between money, physical spend. You can get MailChimp for $50 a month. So again, all of the companies you mentioned above, we're talking Burberry, IKEA, Nike, Zara, they all have successfully integrated digital, but they can still afford both. They're allocating significant budgets towards digital. Why is that? They can do both, and they're still choosing to allocate towards digital. So in all of these comparisons, generally the digital offers a bit more of a cost-effective solution, with the added advantage of your better targeting, tracking, and you can modify your campaigns in real time. My favorite word for that was, being dynamic. Also, something that's important, again, I like to partner with established companies, but the barrier to entry for digital advertising can be much lower. So it makes it more accessible for medium to small size businesses, which is fantastic. But again, we kind of touched all ends of the spectrum because it's accessible, but we're looking at brands that are top industry leaders that have significant market share and are household names, and they're using it. And the growth is, we're talking 45-50% growth. So what's the conclusion? Where do we conclude? So clearly the error's here. We're locked in. It's not going anywhere. That's one thing. So traditional means they're here. They've standed the test of a long time, but things change. And the digital era is here. It's not going anywhere. So with more precision, customization, measurable impact is a game changer. We ultimately know it's a game changer, especially those with the e-commerce aspect. In the example, I included some that don't necessarily have e-com or weren't e-com heavily focused, and it still had an impact on their business. So that goes on to lead to say, I don't think it's digital versus traditional. I think it's digital and traditional. Digital and traditional. So the most effective advertising strategies that we usually see are a combination of both. I don't think it has to be, this is better than the other, this is better than the other, but as I said, it's here. It's not going anywhere. You would be wise to implement it into a strategy, especially if you do have a traditional presence. It'll actually give you an advantage. Some of the pros that we mentioned of being a traditional company and using traditional means, such as the elements of trust, such as the elements of simplicity, these give you an advantage to just jump into the online landscape because you can drag over some of the social proof and you can leverage the social proof online. It's crazy that a piece of content can be a newspaper magazine that you've already paid for. And when I mentioned earlier, again, the actionable steps, using what you already have, repurposing that magazine and just putting it on your Instagram, that gives you social proof. So none of it's going to waste. So that's just one thing I want to throw out there. I don't think it's a case where it's like, don't do this, do this. I think it's a case of just assessing the marketplace, what's working at the moment. I think a combination of both is highly effective. So the examples above, they reflect the immense impact and potential on integrating digital marketing into your business strategy. It's a no-brainer. Great if you already have it implemented. There's definitely areas that you can squeeze more. It's not just about being competitive, it's about being the leader in your space, especially if you want to be around for a long time, because I know I do. So, hopefully this is showing you that it's not only a shift, but it's crucial, and hopefully you've found some ways that you can get started. If not, or if you're struggling with anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. It'd be good to, potentially get you set up with a consultation call. No obligations at all. We only work with established companies, so we likely don't have anything to sell to a lot of people, but it would be definitely good to have a call. So if you found this valuable, just drop us a like, comment, share, all that stuff. But more importantly, something that I actually genuinely really enjoy and I'd love for you to do is drop a comment below, whether you're a traditional company, potentially you want to implement some strategies, maybe you're fully e-commerce led, drop a comment, share some ideas. I'm always looking to grow, and let's continue the conversation. I think it's an open dialogue. I'm open to being dynamic, as my favorite term states. So yeah, thumbs up, all of that stuff, but mainly someone, drop a comment, and I'd love to hear from you. Until next time.